So like we were talking about how men generally have this like apprehension to seek therapy, and then say, all right, man, all right, I'm going to go for it. All right, I'm going to push past all of that stuff. I'm going to go for it. And, you know, hey, my guy on my favorite podcast is always playing ads for this. So that's what I'm going to try that, right?
Yep.
And then you have a bad experience. That's going to shut down like the likelihood of your pursuit of therapy going forward. And
exactly.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess another message I want to send is like, if you've had that bad experience, like, please don't give up. There are effective counselors out there. There are people out there who want to help you.
So welcome back to another episode of the What's Your Motive podcast. Today I have an extremely special guest. I actually met him via email, which I shot him an email just trying to reach out to, do some collaboration things and just really try to get some more education to edify not only myself, but also you, the viewers. He's a LPC. He's a grad of the UWM Panthers, yes. UWM Panthers, stand up, please. And I'm just super excited to, speak with him and talk to him. He and I met over lunch about 2 weeks ago, and we were able to connect, and it's been wonderful. Please welcome Nicholas Luelof to the What's Your Motive podcast. How you doing today?
Good, man. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I'm so happy that we were able to connect and make it work, especially with our busy lives, right? We got families and things like that, so it's great for you to be here. So how you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. I was excited when you first reached out to me. I sometimes I think I shared this with you, get people reaching out of just like, sometimes kind of random things, usually trying to like kind of sell me something or, hey, let us revamp your website for you or that type of thing, right? And so when you had reached out to me, I was like, I wasn't quite sure, like, what is this, right? And then when I looked you up and realized, oh, you were like local, that inspired me to like, okay, this is maybe somebody I want to connect with for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure, and it was like the reason why I reached out is because like I was looking for individuals that I can connect with in regards to just like men's mental health, right? So I was like, let me get on the internet. That's the first thing you do. So I get on there and you pop up, and I'm looking. I see you on Psychology Today, so I started reading a little bit about you, checking out your website and things like that. I was like, I'm gonna send him an email. I mean, will he respond? I don't know. You know what I mean? And it was just like a shot in the dark, and then it was like, you wrote back, and I'm like, what? Let's do a lot. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just happy to try to connect with a variety of different people so that, people can see not only other individuals' work, but also I can edify myself and help the viewers understand what's out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm excited that we're able to do this for sure.
No, for sure. So, for starters, tell us a little about yourself, like your upbringing. Do you have siblings?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Racine, Wisconsin, right? So not too far from here. I have one brother. He's my twin brother, actually, which I feel like is kind of a unique experience. No, I didn't. Yeah. Okay. We're fraternal, so you could tell us apart. But we definitely look like brothers. Okay. I don't know. I guess I don't know exactly what you want to know, but
so so the fact that you got a brother, a brother, right? It's just you and him.
Just us two.
Okay. What was it like for you guys growing up? Were you guys competitive? Were you guys, what was it like?
Yeah, for sure.
In the sports?
We are into sports. I think we weren't immediately. I think probably we got a little bit older before we kind of got into sports. And I probably got into it. I got into it more than he did. So we kind of have some like different interests. Gotcha. I'm very much like, I'm very extroverted. He's very introverted. We have these like differences.
Okay.
But still like some differences, but still maintain the same interests.
Gotcha.
So like, some brotherly competition, but for the most part, honestly, I feel like it helped me have this like sense of like fairness.
Okay.
Of like, okay, if I have something, I'm splitting it with my brother. If he has something, I expect him to be splitting it with me, right? Or like, okay, we're going to play the game. You got to share. You go, then you go. Or we're playing together. Like, sharing a car. Like all of that stuff.
Wow. And that's crazy that you say that because a lot of times, or oftentimes, I hear like me and my brother and sister used to, get into it. I didn't want to share, but you do learn those things, the value of sharing. And my sister and I are 12 years apart, so I was kind of like the only child kind of like growing up. But so that's a different type of outlook and perspective for me.
And don't get me wrong, we definitely got into it plenty for sure. But we definitely did, but we I don't know, we were able to navigate that pretty good.
Okay.
But it didn't really strike me until I got to like college, because so I went away to college, he stayed home. And that's when I realized like, oh yeah, I have this, like I want to share, like, oh, if I have something, I'm going to share it with my roommate, or like, like I was like, and maybe I think it's good to have that. Not everybody has that.
This is true.
I just noticed that, that's when it first hit me of like, oh, I think my situation with my sibling is maybe a little bit more unique than some other people's situations.
Exactly. And so you left racing and came to Milwaukee.
Yep.
What was that transition like for you?
It was, I mean, that's like a huge life change, right? Like going to college, moving away, not super far away, but far away enough. Some of my friends from high school also went to UWM, so we kind of all, I didn't like live with them, but I had people that I could hang out with.
Were you in the dorms, or did you? Okay.
I was in the dorms.
How was the dorm life?
It was great, man. It was fun. Honestly, loved it. Like we had a blast. I met a lot of really cool people. Roommates were cool. Actually, my brother was going to come to UWM, and then like last minute decided not to, and we were going to room together. So that whole first semester, I actually had the room to myself, which was cool. But then,
and then it was time to bring somebody in.
Well, I just like met a guy down the hall who like I had become friends with, and he wasn't getting along with his roommate, so he just moved into my room.
Okay.
And then but we did that like unofficially, and then at some point, the dorm people like reached out to me, and they were like, hey, you still don't have a roommate. We got to get someone in there with you. And I was like, actually, this guy moved in down the hall. Can we just do that? And they were like, yeah, that's cool. So
so they worked out. It worked out. Yeah. Did you find that like leaving racing and coming to UWM and being in the dorms, did you find yourself growing up kind of fast? Or did you feel like the responsibility? Did you feel it during that time, or if you thinking back?
It was a transition period. It's like, I think a lot of people would say the same. It's like you're an adult insofar as you're legally an adult. You can kind of do what you want to do.
Right.
But the responsibility, like it certainly didn't feel like adulthood yet. Right. I took class seriously, and I did my homework, and I did all of that. I wanted to make sure I was like passing and everything. Right. But I was mostly concerned with like having fun with my friends and stuff.
Absolutely.
So like
the downtime, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to kick it and have fun.
So it was like not quite, I don't know, man. Sometimes I don't feel like I really felt like I was an adult until recently. Until I was like,
that's interesting. And I'm kind of disappointed in myself, because I should have stayed in the dorms. I stayed at home, so I was like driving back and forth to school, but I wish I would have had that dorm experience.
Yeah.
So while you're at UWM, you decide to, what was your first major? Or did you automatically jump into, wanting to be a counselor?
Yeah, no. And maybe that's kind of what I'm partially referring to about like not quite feeling like an adult, is like I took the work seriously insofar as, again, like I wanted to pass, I wanted to have good grades. I didn't want to be like wasting my time or, screwing things up.
Right.
But I wasn't really thinking about like the reality of my future. Like
it's hard to see it at that young age, right?
Right. And I wasn't thinking about the reality of like, what do I actually want to do long term? Like this college stay while you're having all this fun, well, this isn't going to last forever. So you really need to be laying the foundation for your future. And I wasn't really thinking about that, to be honest.
You're just living in the moment.
Yeah. And so I actually originally went for criminal justice, and which was kind of like, I don't really know what I want to do, and this is interesting. I like crime shows and stuff. The class was interesting, or the classes were interesting. So I just started just took that, and like that was my major. And while I was doing that, there's some degree of flexibility of like the classes outside your major you can take. So I started taking like a lot of sociology courses, and then started taking a lot of psychology courses. And the psych was like, whoa, this is actually really interesting to me.
Got you.
Like, I have a genuine interest in this. I didn't think that I would pursue it as a career at that point. I was just taking the classes because I liked them and I could.
You enjoyed them, right?
Yeah. And so by the end of undergrad, the counselor there was like, hey, you've taken enough psych courses for that to be like a minor. Do you want to make it your minor officially? And I was like, well, yeah, why not? If I've already done the work.
I came this far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I graduated, the criminal justice major, psych minor, and then like didn't have a job lined up, didn't even really know what I wanted to do. Started applying for some things. I had an internship. I applied there, didn't get the job there. Like, interviewing just wasn't really going well, and I didn't feel like real passionate about anything that I wanted to do. And I moved back home, back to Racine for a little while.
Okay.
I was kind of just working like this series of like not very meaningful and not very enjoyable jobs that didn't pay very well.
Just doing something, right?
Just doing whatever, right? I have to earn some money. So like I'll work in this factory for a while. I work at this place for a while. I work at that place. Like, oh, my buddy's at this job. He says it's all right. He can get me a job. I'll go do that for a while.
Yeah. Trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah, really. And honestly, just really kind of being clueless. And this is what led me to, I think, ultimately like pursuing therapy.
Okay.
Professionally as a career. Was like, that was a hard time, man. If I look back at it, I would say that was probably the hardest time I've experienced.
How old were you? Do you remember? Like
22, 23.
22, 23. Okay.
Yep.
So a young man.
22, 23, 24. Yeah, like there a couple years in there were just really difficult where I felt really lost. I felt really like I don't know what I want to do. I felt really like I don't really have anything going for me. I'm sorry. Are you gonna?
No, I hear you. I'm listening. Like I agree with you because I remember that particular time. Do you remember like having somebody like, whether it be a male or a female, like in your corner, like kind of like trying to encourage you during that time, but you still felt that way?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my mom has always been like super, super supportive.
Got you.
And this is another thing about my upbringing is my parents split up when me and my brother were super, super young. I have no memory of them being together.
Got you. Oh, so you were young.
Yeah. No recollection of them ever being together. But my dad was still in my life.
Got you.
But we spent most of our time with our mom. It was like every other weekend and some other times here and there type of thing. But yeah, my mom has always been like super supportive, really like you can do anything you put your mind to type of person. I will do anything I can to support you. I didn't really believe her saying that you can do anything you put your mind to thing until I grew up and was like, oh, actually, if you work really hard, like you can accomplish quite a bit. Anyway, so like at that time, yes, like she was definitely super supportive and like just trying to help me out, trying to help give me direction in whatever way she can. But also at that age, like sometimes you don't want to hear it, right? You kind of have to figure it out for yourself.
Absolutely.
And so, I don't know, I'd moved back home. Wasn't crazy about that. Didn't really have any money. Wasn't crazy about that. Wasn't happy about the work that I was doing. I had gone from, living with my friends in college and having fun all the time to now I'm living at home. None of my friends aren't really around anymore. My brother had moved away. One of my other good best friends had moved away. Then like on top of all of that, I was like trying to figure out how to maintain the relationship I was in at that time, which ultimately ended, and that was super impactful. And I was just like, man, like everything that can go wrong is going wrong right now, and I have no, like the path forward is not clear at all. I have no idea where to go.
Where you going? And you had the criminal justice degree with the minor in psychology.
Yep.
Now, before we keep going, question: even when you decided, like, I'm gonna go the criminal justice route, did you think of like social work? Did you think of law enforcement? Did you think of corrections? Were you ever thinking about any of those things?
Yeah, I mean, there were some things that I felt like I that I wasn't interested in. Like corrections, I knew was like not for me.
Gotcha.
But like props to everyone who does that.
No,
That's an important job,
sure.
right?
Shout you out. Yeah,
for sure. But I knew that wasn't for me.
got you.
I applied and like interviewed for some law enforcement jobs that like, you know, I thought maybe that was what I wanted to do, but like realized like a couple months into doing that, it hit me like this isn't actually what I want to be doing either, right?
Right.
And again, like shout out to those people, right? Important job, but not for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, I mean, that was important. That was meaningful for me to realize, like, okay, this field I think isn't actually the field that I want to be in. There was another, I can't even remember the name of the role that I had applied for that I had interned. It was like
was it administrative?
Crime analyst or something like that.
Okay.
Which that work was interesting, but yeah, like I don't know how many jobs there are available in that, but so realize that's what it was a big realization for me to recognize like that's not what I want to do.
Not what I want to do, right.
So that at least you would think maybe that would be discouraging, but it was actually pretty encouraging just to be able to make that decision of, all right, that's not it.
Yeah. I mean, you got some kind of like, yeah, I'm not doing it, and I can focus here.
Yeah, I can try to focus on what the next thing can be instead of pursuing these things that don't maybe align with who I am.
Right. In the midst of everything you got going on, like the relationships, moving back home, being 22, 23, trying to figure out one of these jobs and things like that. So when did it click? Like, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So I spent a lot of time just like thinking about what I wanted to do. And the job that I was working at the time, I don't know, it was one of those jobs where like, it didn't take a ton of like mental effort. So like as I was doing it, I'm just spending like day after day just like thinking about, man, okay, what's my next move? What do I want to do? If I can figure out what I want to do, then I can kind of break it down into like what would the steps be towards that. But like what's the reality of that? I need to actually figure this out and take it seriously in a way that I didn't, before.
Absolutely.
And so in doing that, I had the realization of like, all right, well, what do you know you like? You liked those psych courses. What types of jobs are there in that field? What can you do in psychology? And like, what would be the steps towards further education for that if needed? And so I just kind of started just looking up. I'm sure I probably just like Googled like what types of jobs can you do like in psychology, right? It was like research and all sorts of stuff. And one of them was like behavioral analyst. Okay. And I was like, so like behavioral analysis is more like focused towards like working with like kids with autism a lot of the time.
Okay.
And there's even some shift with that currently, but at the time I kind of just like stumbled into that. And I was like, well, what's this? This seems interesting. And I was like kind of just reading about it, and they had a program at UWM. So I like set up a meeting with the guy there, and he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I think I'd like to find a way to become like a therapist and talk therapy and work with people. And he was like, well, I don't think behavioral analyst is what you want to do. I was like, okay. All right. And he was like, but we have a counseling program here, right in that building across the street. Have you looked into that? And I was like, I had not even heard of it. Right. So I went home, read about it, Googled it, counseling. They had school counselor, or they called it community counselor at the time. They've now changed it to clinical mental health counselor. And they were having like an open meeting like a week later or something. So I was like, I'm just going to go.
So you popped in.
Yeah, I'm going to go to this open meeting and just see what it's about and meet some of the faculty and some of the other people considering applying. And like read about, all right, like what are the educational requirements? What type of work is this? Like, what does this all actually entail? And that felt like it aligned. And so, I went to that meeting. I was like, all right, I think I'm going to apply for this. It was a master's program.
Gotcha.
But in that meeting, I just touched my mic.
No, you are good. You are good.
In that meeting, I asked, like, I don't have any type of background in this. Like, is it worth it for me to apply to this? And the person who was running the program at the time, she was really cool and really nice about it. And she was like, "Well, yeah, this field tends to be a field where people are like making career changes. Maybe they went into one field or another, and for any reason found that they weren't fulfilled in that work, and so they're shifting to this. And they're like, so yeah, you don't have to have a background in this. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you know, because now I'm thinking about that, like you said, people that are trying to make a career shift, right? Do you think some of your previous background and your previous experiences help you to become a better counselor or therapist?
In terms of like my personal experience?
Or just like that in general?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's helpful insofar as I don't know that the educational background, like the criminal justice stuff, has helped a lot. Maybe just maybe a little bit, just to kind of have some more understanding of systems and stuff.
Right.
But not a whole lot outside of that. Not a whole lot in terms of like the work that I'm doing. But I would say like my personal experience has been extremely beneficial to go through my own hardships, to experience my own depression and my own anxiety and panic attacks and stress and overwhelm and like to have that. And like, most people experience some of that to some degree, but I do feel like to kind of have an understanding of what has my experience been with those things.
Got you.
What have I found to be helpful? What did I do? What did I try that wasn't helpful? And kind of just help me understand better the clients that I'm working with today.
The people.
Yeah. So it's the personal experience, I think, that really has been more beneficial in that background.
Got you. So then after that meeting with that lady, correct? That's when you end up jumping full-fledged into the program.
Yeah. So I decided to apply. It was just like, I reached out for people to write me letters of recommendation and stuff. And did the whole thing. You're writing essays, you're doing everything. I'm like, and then I had taken like a camping backpacking trip with my brother and a couple of my cousins. Like I applied and then we left for the trip right away. And the whole time on the trip, I'm like, man, when I get back, like, please let me in. I don't know what I'm gonna do if I get back and I have like a letter of rejection or something. I'm gonna have to figure out a whole new path. But ultimately got back and got in and started a few months later.
How did that feel when you got the acceptance?
Oh man, it was exciting. It felt like, okay, like hopefully I think this is the direction, right?
Gotcha.
That felt really good. And to be completely 100% honest with you, I decided in that moment, like I recognized I had never really, it's a shame to say this because I wish this weren't the case, but I'm sure plenty of people feel this way. I had never really given my best effort in anything in life up to that point, right? I kind of skirted by in school, played sports, but like wasn't particularly good, like, whatever.
Gotcha.
So like I felt at that point, I've never really like gone full 100% best effort. And if I fail, so be it. And so I was like, that if I'm going to do this, that's what I need to do.
So you were intentional with this.
Yes. I need to genuinely give my absolute best effort here. I've never done that before. And if you don't ever do that, how do you ever know what you're capable of accomplishing? And so that was like that was a game changer for me.
Wow. So how many years did it take you to finish that? And then what did you do after?
Yeah, for sure. So the program, excuse me, sorry, taking a drink mid-sentence here. The program initially was 2 years, and then they changed the licensing requirement while I was in the program to be 2.5. So nothing crazy, but just an extra semester. So
so they didn't like grandfather you and be like, no, you can just finish this?
I think you had that option.
Okay.
But the way that like the professors and faculty and stuff like talked about it was that if you're ever gonna like leave the state and want to get licensed in a different state, so all the counseling licenses are all by state, right? So like I can't practice in any other state besides Wisconsin.
Gotcha.
And they were like, Wisconsin was kind of behind on our licensing requirements. Most states have already been requiring this.
Gotcha.
So they're like, if you ever, like, if you don't want to limit yourself to only working in Wisconsin, it's probably best to just
Got you.
go with the new requirements.
Okay.
So that's what I did. And
So that made sense.
I have no plans to leave Wisconsin, but I was like, all right, I'm already here, like a couple more classes.
Just in case.
Yeah, right.
Just in case. So you finish the program, and then what do you do? So you're done.
Yeah, so, well, part of the program, so yeah, 2.5 years. For a year of that, you're doing, or 2 semesters, you're doing an internship.
Yep.
So I found a local practice, family options counseling, Dr. Kim Young, who was willing to like take me on as an intern. She was amazing. She's huge, like incredibly influential. And I'm super, super grateful because she had no reason to like take a risk on me. You know what I mean? And she taught me so much. Great work they do at Family Options Counseling.
Okay.
But so I interned there.
Okay.
And I was there for 2 semesters. And then they hired me after.
Okay.
So I stayed on. And so once you complete that degree, so I got the master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. Once you complete that, then you apply for and take the necessary tests to get your like training license. So then I was a licensed professional counselor in training.
Got you.
You have to work under a supervisor, which is Dr. Young, who I mentioned. Continue working under her until you accumulate a certain number of hours.
Okay.
In terms of doing like face-to-face therapy work. And then once you accumulate those hours, then you can apply for your like, your individual license and knock that training piece off the end of your title.
And when you say working under her, like, are you just like when she has a client, you're sitting there watching and observing, or do you actually get to do some under the guise of her? Yeah.
So throughout the internship and throughout my time as a LPC in training, I'm doing like face-to-face counseling individually, right?
Okay.
What I mean when I'm saying under her is that you have dedicated time every single week, and this is like a legal requirement to get the license, dedicated time every single week to meet with your supervisor to discuss like the clients that you're working with, discuss what you're doing, discuss where you where you need help, or that type of thing, right?
Gotcha.
So you're still working individually. There can be that like direct supervision. That wasn't a big part for me, but that can be a thing.
Okay.
That wasn't a big part for me. It's more about the intentional weekly supervision and making sure you're using that time.
Got you. Yeah. I mean, you're educating me because I did not know. So I was just thinking like, hey, do you get to do it on your own? But I like that. I understand direct supervision for certain, instances, but I also think that, you being able to work with a client or multiple clients and then going back to her and, kind of like disseminating the information, like what's going on, what am I doing, and then having that evaluated.
Yep.
Did it serve you well for that?
Oh, it was huge. Yeah. Enormous. Yeah. Again, like Dr. Young is incredible.
Gotcha. She
was amazing. She was super influential on me. I'm super grateful for like the opportunity that she gave me. I learned so much from her.
Shout out Dr. Young.
Shout out Dr. Young at Family Options Counseling for sure. They're doing good work over there. And they have like a couple like programs there.
Okay.
One is aggression replacement therapy.
I think I read that on like your bios or something.
Yeah, so I did some of that with them, and what that is basically working with young men, teens, young men who have displayed like aggression or anger or something, and a lot of them being court ordered after some charge or something, to like figure out ways to manage that anger, right? And so that's one of the things that I did over there, and they have a couple other programs as well that I was involved in. But yeah, very, very influential and beneficial experience for me.
Definitely want to come back to the aggression replacement therapy. But so then you do that, you become under Dr. Young. You've done that, so you get your hours.
Yep.
And then you end up having to take the exam.
So I had taken, so that is like the process.
Gotcha.
But you can take that licensing exam at any point once you're.
Oh.
So like I took that right away.
Okay.
Some people do like get their hours and then take it. But I was like fresh out of school, like in that like, okay,
mode.
All of this information is fresh in my head. I'm in this mode of like studying all the time and preparing. So like I just took it right away.
It made sense.
So once I had my hours, like that was it. Once I had the hours, all I had to do was apply.
Got you.
Because I had already passed the test at like a year and a half earlier or whatever.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you do that, and then after you've done that, you got your license and things like that. Do you stay there, or what do you do next?
Yeah. So I stayed there for a little while. But ultimately I was kind of looking for a fresh experience. And so I moved on to a company that they used to be called Sane A. Now they're called WellPoint Care
Off
Network.
of 91st or 92nd in Capital,
And
80,
Capital,
something like that. Yeah.
Yep, yeah, for sure. So they're like a nonprofit community organization.
Uh-huh.
And so I ended up shifting over there and working for them in their school-based program.
Okay.
Which is like they basically like put counselors in a school system, and you're doing therapy with like the students, right?
What ages? Like what grades? I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure. I saw a little bit. It was a little bit everything.
Okay.
I split my time between an elementary school, middle school, and a high school.
Okay. Yeah.
So like really kind of all the age ranges there.
Got you.
Yeah, working primarily with like boys, young men, right? And a lot of things that a lot of problems that I was working with at Family Options Counseling in terms of like anger, like acting out,
and that was what I was going to ask you. What were you seeing? So you were seeing that. So they were acting out like in class and things like that.
Yep.
And then you would apply the aggression replacement therapy.
Some of the concepts.
Some of the concepts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that aggression replacement therapy, again, shout out Family Options. That's their thing. They created that. They do that, right? So I can't say like,
no, for sure.
Hey, I advertise and practice that outside of here, but I do take those concepts and apply them in my day-to-day work for sure.
Okay. So then after WellPoint, what happens next? What do you do?
Yeah. So there was a WellPoint. I loved working there, and I loved being in the school system. But ultimately, some changes were made that I felt like maybe this isn't the best fit for me right now. So I moved on to another company called Premise Health.
Okay.
And what they do, they're like a nationwide company. And what they do is they provide medical services for employers.
Yeah, I remember you telling me this. Yeah.
Yep. So I became like the mental health counselor at Northwestern Mutual downtown.
Okay.
So I had an office there, and I work with their employees and their dependents. And so I did that for a couple years. That was a little bit of a shift from what I was used to, but huge experience for sure. So I did that for a couple years, and then as I was doing that, I was like, I'm gonna kind of start my own practice and do that like part time, do that on the side, and then eventually it got to a point. Things were kind of like built up, and it got to a point in my personal life where I felt like, all right, it's maybe now or never to like to do this private practice and really commit to that. So then ultimately I left Premise after a couple of years and started doing my own private practice full time, which I had already been doing part time for like 9 or 10 months or something at that point.
So 2 things. So you jump out on your own. You already, I mean, you kind of, you put your one foot in, one foot out, working for yourself.
Yeah.
What was that like going from working part-time with the security blanket of your job, right?
Yeah.
To I'm full-fledged depending on my own skills.
Yeah.
Like what was that like for you? That transition for you?
Yeah, for sure. No, it was scary. That's the hard part, right? Is like there's no guarantee it's going to work. I felt like it would. I felt like I was putting in the time to make it happen, and ultimately, of course, there's like marketing and all sorts of stuff that you have to do that I'm like not crazy about. That's not really my thing. But I put some time into that, right? And then, I mean, ultimately, the best thing that you can do to like carry your business is be an effective counselor, which has been my main goal my whole career. But so, well, yeah, to answer your question, it was super scary for sure, right? I felt like, and my wife reassured me of this.
Because you were married at the time.
Yes, yeah. I had just gotten married a couple months before I left to start with the private practice fully. Which that was a deciding factor.
A courageous man.
That was a deciding factor because I knew okay, we'll probably have kids at some point.
Right.
We probably want to, get a bigger house at some point, that type of thing. And I was like, if we start doing that stuff before I've taken this leap, I'm probably never going to do it.
Yeah.
So it kind of felt like now's the time. If I don't try it now, I might not ever try it. And I know for sure I guess I can't see the future any clearer than anyone, but I feel very, very certain that if I got to the end of my career and I looked back and I was like, oh, I never attempted to do my own thing, I would regret it. So I had to take the leap.
It's funny you say that. I was just watching something I cannot remember. I was on YouTube, and the quote went, "I'm afraid to live a life not accomplishing something I could have."
Yeah.
And when you just said that, it made me think of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I felt like, so it felt like, all right, now's the time, right? Now or never. And I ultimately believed that it was going to work, but I knew I had like a fallback of like, I'm still a licensed professional. I have a good resume. I have good experience. So if this doesn't work, I will likely find a job.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
And yeah.
But you were able to stay with it. So, when you began the practice and you go into full-fledged, were you already focusing on young teen males and men?
So that was kind of my experience at Family Options and WellPoint.
Okay, so that's been since the inception, since you began.
But I'll acknowledge not necessarily like by choice. There was kind of like that's just kind of what I fell into.
Okay,
right? And I got that experience.
Gotcha.
And then the experience at Premise was a little bit different. The client base was a little bit different. But I found while doing that, like, I kind of have the population that I enjoy working with and that I feel most effective with.
Got you.
Is like
niche,
men.
is what they call
exactly.
it, right?
Yep, exactly. And so when I was going to start my own practice, I was like, at first I was nervous about like, do I need to like specialize in this? Am I like cutting off a percentage of the population that could be potential clients?
Right.
But ultimately, right, the deciding factor is like, all right, well, if you want to be most effective and do this work, which is the most important thing, is that I'm effective as a counselor, then you need to do it with the people that you feel the most effective doing it with, right? And there's certainly a need for that, right?
Absolutely.
So those two things match up. There's a need, and I'm effective at doing it.
No, for sure.
And so I was like, all right, yeah, that's kind of the route I'm gonna take with it.
Got you. So so that's how you fell into the young teen males and the men, right? So when we think about like that population of individuals, right? A lot of times they usually like to say that, men are a little bit more reticent or hesitant to take on therapy. I mean, even young boys, right? Because of the social constructs that say like you got to hold it in and things like that. Like, how do you go about like even when you have someone in a session helping them break down that thought process and that stigma, and why is that important?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that holds a lot of people back from pursuing therapy, right? In some ways just the idea of like, if I pursue outside help, I'm like weak, or that means I'm not enough,
right?
Or that like almost confirms that means I'm not enough, right? Or I'm not strong enough, or whatever it might be, right? And I think there's also this idea, I don't know where this came from. We can get into like the pop culture,
no, for sure,
aspects of therapy, but I think there's also this idea of like, this is going to be like a really painful experience. There's going to be this really emotional experience, and like, I'm not ready for that. And don't get me wrong, therapy can be that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Gotcha.
Right. And so like my approach, there's room for that. There's room for whatever you need in that session. There's room for
sure.
that. But it doesn't have to be. It's likely not going to be this like sob session, emotional.
Because that's what we see on the TV, right?
Exactly, right. And again, it can be that. It's fine when that is, right? If you need that, 100%, I'm here for that. But my approach tends to focus more on like, okay, let's talk like strategies. Let's talk identifying, why do you feel like your life isn't going the way you want it to go? Where do you feel like these feelings of depression and anxiety are coming from? How do we identify, are there negative thought patterns that are contributing to that, that we can kind of hone in on and target and start to challenge and shift? Are there behaviors that we're engaging in or not engaging in that are driving this kind of cycle? And that's, so my approach to that tends to be a little bit more like, let's use logic. Let's use like the objective reality as far as we can see it, which nobody's perfect at. Yep. Unpack it, kind of map it out so we know like what's the situation, what's within our control, and then from there, what are changes that we can start to make and that we can start to implement. And that, I think men in particular, in a general sense, can kind of latch onto that approach a little bit more of like, okay, this is clear to me. There's a roadmap here.
Right. We appreciate the logic is what they say, right?
Yeah.
We appreciate like, okay, this is what we're gonna do.
Right.
And I can imagine like you working with young guys and more seasoned guys, right? Or the adults, right?
Yeah, for sure. I see a whole spectrum of ages too. Yeah.
So I'm thinking when I'm thinking about that, because we think about like, the young children that are growing up. You know, those young men are going through these things. They're changing. You got puberty. You got different dynamics in families and things like that, and they become these men eventually, right? So, do you feel like it's really, really necessary to start earlier,
in terms of therapy,
or do you find that you can be just as effective with the adults?
Yeah, I mean, it's situation by situation for sure. I think. Of course, I think there's some idea that everybody could benefit from therapy, and I do believe in that, right? But it's not necessarily required. It's certainly not required for everybody. I think if you have a good support system or like good role models, very important, who are demonstrating like, how do we manage our emotions? How do we communicate? How do we function, right? If you have that, maybe therapy is not necessary, right? If you have that and you're using it, right? If you have that role model and you're choosing to follow them. Actually, in terms of, like when is therapy necessary? I guess I don't have like a strict concrete answer, but are you a sports guy?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So
very much so.
I read just a couple weeks ago an article in The Athletic. That was about, like these like bigger sports guys who had all struggled with like depression and anxiety, and it was like, like Jay Glazer from like the Sunday morning football show, Michael Phelps, The Rock, like Dwayne Johnson, all these guys had somehow connected and recognized, though we've all experienced and continue to experience, depression or some mental health distress in some way. And so they like created this kind of like support group for each other. Okay. And I guess where I'm going with that is like that kind of like informal support of, I have these people in my life, this friend or this family member or whoever, that goes such a long way. And men are just, again, general sense, not great at utilizing that. And so I guess what I'm trying to say in response to your question is like, be intentional about utilizing the support networks that you have. If you struggle with that, or if you don't have a support network, or anywhere in between that spectrum, like absolutely, right? We go ahead and seek therapy if you feel like that's going to be helpful for you, right? But and sometimes that support network can't solve everything, right? Sometimes problems are a little bit more too intense for that. Right. But I want to encourage like how meaningful utilizing that support network is, and you have to be intentional about doing that. Guys aren't always great at checking in, right? I may not pick up that you're struggling. You might not send a message to me that you're struggling. And so we're just like existing together and neither of us know, or neither of us we're not on the same page. And so I can't be supported if the people around me don't know that I'm having a hard time, and I can't support someone else if I don't know that they're having a hard time.
and then we're just sitting here masking it, and we're basking in it. We're stewing in it the entire time, and it's crazy. And I think when you were mentioning like the importance of having, like you said, this informal group of individuals, this network of people, and then even just being able to cultivate a network that's healthy for you, right? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really a healthy one, and that check-in is very, very important because the individual that I wrote the book with, every day, what's going on? How you feeling? Every day. Yeah. Like if he forgets to text me, I text him, or vice versa. Same thing with one of my closest friends. I make sure that we call each other a cup of coffee. We just say cup of coffee in the morning. Just trying to make sure, like, how you feeling today? You sound low down, and trying to be more intentional like that. And that's why I really feel like it's important. And I think a lot of people, and you tell me, it seems like a lot of people think like they use therapy as the last resort, as opposed to being a little bit more proactive with it.
Yeah.
In alignment, or to complement the informal group that they have, right?
Yeah, that definitely is the case. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that way, right? There's people out there, therapists that you can connect with and do good work with. That does not have to be the last resort. Absolutely. And so, yeah, I definitely would encourage that as well.
Do you see that a lot in men, though? Like,
yeah.
therapy
for sure.
as the last resort?
Absolutely.
And do you think that's still, would you attribute that to just like that male, masculine, if I can't figure it out and I'm asking, I'm like, I'm really feel weak.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to exhaust myself to where like I'm almost down to.
That's the main thing. I genuinely believe that that's the main thing, right? Like, I don't feel good about it. I don't want the people around me to know, right? And so, we just hold it all in. We don't want to signal to ourselves that we're weak or that we're not strong enough.
Yes.
And so, and then it's like you wear yourself down until eventually you're like, I have nowhere else to go. Now I'm going to seek something. If you even get to that point, some guys wear themselves down and still never get to that point, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's plenty of barriers and stuff to seeking therapy, but I would encourage anybody listening, if men listening or people who have men in their lives, like, don't treat this as like a last resort. Don't treat therapy as a last resort. If you're struggling, or if you feel like there's any area of your life that you're not content with, or you feel like isn't going the way you want it to go, and the support network, either you don't feel able to utilize it, or you don't have it, or it's not holding you up the way you hope it will, reach out, man. And again, find someone that you connect with.
Yes.
Take the time. It doesn't, you don't have to, thankfully we don't have to like go through the phone book and call people like we probably would have had to do like 25 years ago or something. But take the time to look around, like, and I genuinely believe this too. Find someone local. Find someone who's like doing this work for themselves. I think you will generally get a better experience in therapy. You will generally get a more present therapist when you're finding somebody who's doing this work like for their own motivation, I should say.
Gotcha.
And not like that big corporate setting.
We talked about this.
That big corporate setting for therapists tends to not drive the best experience in therapy for a number of reasons, and I'm happy to get into that more if you want to.
No, for sure, because remember we talked about like, therapy, and like you said, and like individualized, like, I got my own practice versus the corporation versus the virtual, right? And you can go into that if you would like to, just about, because we kind of aligned it with like teachers. You know what I mean? So
for sure. So some of the big corporations nowadays in terms of therapy, anybody listening probably knows who I'm talking about. You see the ads on the TV, you hear them on the radio, you hear them on your podcasts that you listen to.
They pop up in your algorithm.
Yep, it pops up on there for sure. Look, those are great insofar as they do remove barriers and they tend to be cost effective.
Right.
The problem is, and I've talked to a lot of people who have both done that work and been a client in one of those big corporations. The problem is those therapists, in order to earn like a decent wage, have to like really drive themselves to burnout. And so the experience that you're likely to have on there, that and this is no offense to anybody who works in one of those settings. For various reasons, we all have to do what we have to do, right? But nobody can be effective as a therapist long term when you're seeing 40 hours worth of clients every single week. You just can't do it. You will burn out. And that's what those types of corporations tend to require if you want to earn a reasonable salary, right? A reasonable wage.
Incentive, right? The incentive, right?
Yep.
It's more money.
And so, yes, right? Like parents, therapists are driving themselves, driving themselves down, and they're not able to stay as present. They're not able to stay as effective through no fault of their own.
Right.
But through like, hey, I need to provide for myself. I need to provide for my family. And so they're worn out. And so the experience tends to be when I talk to clients who have kind of used one of those platforms. Right. It tends to be either, I didn't feel like my therapist really was like paying attention to me.
Remember I told you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like they were like present with me. I didn't feel, in some cases, didn't feel like they really even remembered who I was when we met. And then therapists tend to like thankfully, not stick around on those platforms too long, right? And so like,
because they get burnt out.
Yeah, exactly. They get burned out and they realize like this isn't sustainable for me. So it might be, if you did have a good experience, I saw this person a couple times, and then they left. That's a pretty common experience too.
It breaks the consistency.
Yeah.
And just think about that though, because it's like obviously therapy and things have been around for a while, right? But as of recent, like we've been a lot of mental health, information, and it's an infodemic on it, right? And we have to be careful with it, right? Yeah. But just think about when I'm listening to you, I'm just thinking about the amount of individuals that may have lacked the benefit of it because of how that therapist had to work based on that corporation. Yeah. Versus someone like you, where you have your own practice and you're able to actually take that time with that person, and really reflect on the information, listen, a little bit more attentively, as opposed to, let me take these notes, I hear you, and saying, do this, and go on. Yours is more relational. Yeah, no, I can say 100% without a doubt, I'm a far more effective counselor when I have like the reasonable number of sessions scheduled that week, right? Gotcha. I'm going to be able to be present. I'm going to be more effective. All of that, right? So ultimately, if we're thinking about it in terms of like a product, right? You are getting a better product because I have the time and the like mental energy to focus. Yes, the capacity. Thank you to focus in that session and be present with you. And it does. It drives a lot of people away. So like we were talking about how men generally have this like apprehension to seek therapy, and then say, all right, man, all right, I'm going to go for it. All right, I'm going to push past all of that stuff. I'm going to go for it. And hey, my guy on my favorite podcast is always playing ads for this, so that's what I'm going to try that, right? Yeah. And then you have a bad experience. That's going to shut down like the likelihood of your pursuit of therapy going forward. And exactly. Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess another message I want to send is like, if you've had that bad experience, like, please don't give up. There are effective counselors out there. There are people out there who want to help you. And hopefully you can find them. You can find them. I know that you can. But sometimes the easiest route, unfortunately, isn't always the best one. Right. And I'm listening to you intently, and as I'm thinking, I'm like, do we forget? Do people forget that therapists are people as well? Sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like when I'm listening to you talking, I'm like, he's a therapist, but he's also a human being. Yeah. So like, I think we were talking when we were at Zupa at lunch. I was like, sometimes I think like, do therapists take some of it home on accident? Based on like some of the things that they hear from their clients.
Yeah, you certainly can.
Because I know, like being in education, a lot of teachers will hear some traumatic things or even see some of the traumatic things that they had to like go to the guidance counselor for and be like, hey, I need you to report this, or we need to try to work this out. Like, I think about you guys as well. Like, you hear some of the, and I don't want to, talk bad about it, but you hear some interesting things, some interesting stories, some things that are like, wow, that's not normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, some things that are, really unfortunate.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So just trying to remember that you guys are human beings, right?
Sure.
Shout out all the therapists, you know what I mean? But in the counselors, it's like, do you ever feel like people don't recognize that or acknowledge that?
Sometimes, but I would never put that like on the client, right?
Absolutely.
Like it's not, of course, we're all human, right? I want to be seen as a human because I am a human, right?
Right.
But I would never put that onus on the client, right? Ultimately, it's up, the therapist, it's up to you to like take care of yourself and do what you have to do to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So that person, if a client is worrying about me, that means I'm not doing my job effectively.
Okay.
Right. And so, like, yes, of course, like, see me as a human. We're going to develop and maintain this human professional relationship.
Yep. Got you.
But, like I said, if a client is worrying about me, that means I'm not doing my job as a therapist.
So another question, does a therapist need a therapist?
They definitely can. I've seen therapists for sure.
Got you.
I think that's a common thing. Absolutely. And I think there's struggles there. It's like, maybe it's not obvious, but like therapists have a lot of professional ethics to maintain, right? And confidentiality and being non-judgmental and all that type of thing. But I do think therapists are often hesitant to seek their own therapy because, well, that person might be somebody that you come across professionally in this field in another way, right? And you don't want them to think about you negatively, right? So it's the same type of thing of like, well, now I'm like hesitant to put myself out there and be vulnerable because maybe I could find myself, working side by side with this person in the future. Or I could find myself, in some type of situation where they know these very vulnerable things about me, and now we have a different relationship.
I never thought about that.
And so people are hesitant for that. I would encourage any therapists out there to not let that drive your decision making. If you feeling like you need to seek a therapist to take care of yourself, right? I think don't let that fear hold you back.
Sure.
But I think that is a real thing for sure.
Wow, I didn't even think of like, you just took me down the whole. I didn't think like that. I wasn't thinking like that. Like, you seek as a therapist. You have your own practice. You understand. You have the experience, but you also reach out to individuals with that could be, I wouldn't say conflicting, but it could lead to some judgment.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Potentially.
For sure,
Potentially.
Right?
Not saying that is the case, but.
Yeah. No. Yes. Potentially. Right.
Yeah.
Or like.
But that adds to another thing, another layer especially for like male therapists, right? Like, we already have, the, like, individuals like myself or others that may be a little bit apprehensive. Let's just say, for example. But then if I'm a therapist and I'm a male, and it's already, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That adds another layer to it.
Yeah. And, I think the past several years, there's been a lot of, you kind of said like infodemic. The past several years, there's been a lot of like self-care, which is super important. Like, heed those messages, listen to that stuff.
Sure.
Take care of yourself. That's going to go such a long way. But yeah, if you're finding that that's not enough, I think don't let that, this is the nature of the conversation, that like fear of vulnerability is driving men to not seek therapy. The same thing is going to happen with therapists in general, right? Regardless of your gender. That fear of vulnerability and potential repercussions from that is going to drive you to not do something that's taking care of yourself. And I've seen a therapist before, both prior to being one and while being one. And I would encourage anybody out there, like, don't let that hold you back.
Gotcha. Do you find yourself, let's say you find yourself in a stressful situation, or like you just feeling a little down or something like that at one point.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself, I guess, trying to diagnose yourself, or like, you know what I'm saying, trying to walk yourself through, like giving your own, what is it, like metacognition, thinking about your thinking? Do you find yourself like trying to get yourself out of it, or use your own, you know what I'm saying, on your own?
I try to use my own strategies.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure,
that's
right?
what I'm
I have
saying.
to practice what I preach, right? And so if I'm working with clients and saying, hey, like let's talk about this strategy or think about things this way or that way, right? And this is what's going to be helpful for you. Well, I can't do that if I don't actually believe it's going to be helpful.
Is it a challenge for you
to apply it to myself? Yeah, for sure. Because we don't have, right? We don't have the same perspective of ourselves as we do of others, so it can be challenging. But that's important. I think if I'm sitting here trying to use a strategy with someone saying, hey, I think this will help you, try this strategy, and I'm not trying to do that myself, I don't know, that feels
for sure
hypocritical.
Yeah, and then like you were saying, like obviously there's a lot of self-care things out there now, right? Mm-hmm. And like you said, that's great. And I think when we wrote the book, I Just Need a Minute, right? Like I told you at Zupa, we are not trying to come out as like mental health, experts or anything like that. That's another reason why I reached out to you, because it's like I just want you to check it out. Like I think it's self-care. It's just things that are practical that I've seen people utilize and some things that I utilize, right? Yeah. But then I gave you the book, and I was like, and it was a great conversation. I actually needed it because like I found myself like, dang, like, am I utilizing these strategies at this moment? Like I felt like a hypocrite. Yeah. Like, is that normal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Okay. No, we get so caught up. This is why I'm grateful that, in the past several years that self-care is really seems to be pushed generally. We get so caught up like living our lives, and we've got a lot going on. I know you've got a lot going on. I've got a lot going on.
Yes, absolutely.
So we get so caught up. And we just kind of, just like fall into habits. So we kind of just like fall into things like, and we end up, we can talk more about this in a second, but we end up like not living in a very intentional way through no like fault of our own or anything. We just kind of fall into the deepest groove, and that's that. And so in doing that, like, sometimes you fall away from those strategies that would be helpful. They're just not on top of your mind because you've got all this other stuff going on. So yeah, man, that's super normal. It happens to me. I'm not perfect.
Yeah, I just felt horrible, like, and I was like beating myself up. I was like, man, like, how can I be trying to provide this to people? But like you said, like, even where you were just saying, like, as a therapist, if I provide a client this strategy and I don't use it for myself, like, who am I to be? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, you want to make sure that your actions align with what you're actually saying. Yeah. So I was thinking about that, and I was taken aback. Like, man, I had to sit there and do some reflection. Like, I need to get back to it because I don't want to be acting like some kind of imposter. And I know imposterism is
it's very real.
What do you call it? A buzzword right now, right?
Yeah,
for
sure.
A lot of people
but it's real.
Right, for sure. Are they usually in the right sense, though?
In my experience, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In my experience, this is one of the ones that, like, it's very popular because so many people feel it.
Okay.
So I think that's one that we're actually kind of getting right. I think
Okay.
Imposter syndrome is super, super common, man. I think almost everyone has experienced that at some point. And yeah, I mean, for me, like, when we're talking about strategies, and maybe you felt this way as well, it's like if I'm not using the strategies that I'm trying to help people apply, how do I know? How am I going to know if it works, right? If I try to use that strategy and it doesn't work for me, that's important for me to know, right?
Right. No, for sure.
So I can, shift or find a way to tweak it, or that type of thing. And it's just like, I don't know, you get a better understanding of the people you're working with when you've kind of been through it yourself a little bit too.
For sure. How important is reflection, especially for like young males and men, in terms of them trying to manage or be proactive in their own mental health?
Yeah, it's huge, man. That actually gets to good, just like a kind of good but brief concept that I wanted to share today too. Is like the idea of, like, we are often experiencing more emotions than we're aware of, and I think men specifically aren't good at recognizing that.
I would agree.
So a lot of the time we were showing and feeling anger or frustration, and we're kind of going with that as if that's the driving emotion. Well, I'm angry because I'm angry, right? I'm frustrated because I'm frustrated, whatever, right? But the reality is most of the time that anger or that frustration is being driven by a different emotion underneath it that we're just like not paying attention to, whether it's anxiety or jealousy or embarrassment or not feeling good enough.
Comparing yourself.
Comparisons for sure. So like these emotions are all like, they're like underneath that anger, and like up here, both outwardly and inwardly, like we're experiencing the anger. But if we took time to reflect and kind of ask ourselves some of those questions, we're going to realize that a lot of that anger and a lot of that frustration or irritation or whatever is coming from something different. And that's what we need to address.
And it's hard to get to that culprit sometimes, right?
Yeah,
especially
sure.
when you're in the midst of it, right?
Absolutely.
And not to mention, like, the whatever, your upbringing was like, right? Some of the background things, some of the things you experienced, and things like that, right?
Well, that's part of the societal piece too, is that like it's kind of accepted that like men are only supposed to show a handful of emotions, right? You can be angry. Sometimes you can be happy. That's about it. That's all we're supposed to show, right?
Right.
And so, like, yeah, you see that if the people you have in your life growing up or the males around you, if that's what they're showing, again through no fault of their own, right? This is kind of a cultural, societal like construct. That's what you're gonna experience, and that's what you're gonna show, right? But every single one of those men has some other emotion underneath it that's driving that most of the time we're either completely unaware of, or we're like intentionally choosing to ignore it because it's not comfortable. It's more comfortable for me to feel anger and show anger than it is for me to acknowledge I'm anxious or I'm embarrassed or whatever.
Because you end up portraying this anger, but you're really feeling a little bit, you're not confident,
right?
You're fearful, like you said, you're anxious and things like that.
Not feeling good enough, whatever it might be.
And you just painstakingly just try to keep going.
And that's
how dangerous is that?
Oh man, I mean, it certainly leads you down a path where if you're not ever doing that reflection, it's just going to be the same, right? That anger is just going to grow and grow and grow because whatever's driving it underneath is never being addressed. So like,
it's like a volcano.
Yeah, for sure, right? And it boils over every once in a while, right? It's different for everybody, and some explosions are more severe than others, but it's going to go off every once in a while, and some degree of that's going to happen. Lives are stressful,
right?
We're always going to have moments where we kind of have that volcano experience, but like when you have an understanding of a better understanding of where that's coming from and what's driving that, you're gonna be able to significantly like decrease the likelihood and the frequency of those, that volcano erupting, and also you're gonna have an understanding of what the reality is of where that's coming from. So hopefully when that volcano needs to erupt, you're gonna be able to do so in a more effective and healthy way through communication, and healthy, what's the word I'm looking for? Healthy things to like put your energy into.
And I agree with that because I found that when I'm most tense or anxious or even, I'll be honest, like depressed or worried or angry, one of the greatest releases is either me being able to go exercise and play basketball or walk on a treadmill, take a walk outside, or even go lift some weights. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel that it brings down a lot of it. Like I felt so different after like getting some exercise. Yeah,
man, the physical aspect goes a long way for sure. And even if you're limited in some way or you're not used to that, like even just a small amount of physical exercise can go a long way. Just a short walk even.
Yeah.
And that comes back to like, you used earlier the word intentional.
Mm-hmm.
We like, and maybe nowadays more than ever, maybe not, I don't know. We so easily fall into these like patterns of living our lives in like unintentional ways.
Mm-hmm.
We're scrolling on our phones.
Oh my gosh.
Playing games, or, watching TV, or, whatever it might be. Again, like all those things all have their place. I do all of those things plenty. Sure. But if we're doing those things too much, we find ourselves like not living our lives in a way that is intentional, right? We're just like falling into these habits and these patterns where we feel like, you're kind of, the phrase, like going through the motions.
Yeah, going through the motions.
If you find yourself feeling that way, ask yourself like, okay, what can I do with intention today? It doesn't have to be anything big or crazy, right? But what can I do with intention today? It might be I'll call someone up that I haven't talked to in a while and just talk to them, right? It might be I'm gonna go for a walk, but I'm gonna no phone, no headphones, that type of thing. Just go for the walk to go for the walk, right? Well, which is another unintentional thing. We're like, we always have something playing, always listening to a podcast. I'm always listening to something that's like distracting me instead of just letting myself think for a couple minutes.
Why is that? Listen, my buddy, I was talking to him the other day, and he said he'll have like a game on, but he'll still be on his phone. Or he'll play the video game, but he still has like a podcast going.
Yeah.
Like, why do we, at this point, and I can only speak for men, but like, why do we always feel like we have to have some kind of entertainment or stimuli? It's a variety, right?
Yeah, man. I think it's like our current technology, right? Everything is so available now through our phones, through TVs, through whatever. And it's all made to like stimulate your brain. And it's all made to be addictive and to get you to look at it as much as possible.
Oh my God.
And that like, it all hits that reward center of the brain. And that's where, where you get stuck like scrolling through whatever you're scrolling through. And next thing you know, it's been who knows how long of time, because like that next scroll is going to just like hit that like reward center of the brain. I was just talking to somebody, some of my friends recently. You ever watch, like, if you watch like a movie today, an opening credit scene is like 20 seconds long, right? There's like one credit.
Yeah.
We dive right in, right? We don't have the attention span. Go watch a movie from like the 60s or 70s. Those opening credit scenes are like 15 minutes long.
Yeah. Everything, yeah.
And I genuinely believe like we just don't have the attention span for that anymore with like how technology is set up.
The reward center is what you said.
Exactly.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that hard. It's hard for me to even, if I want to watch a movie, like I'll put it on, but I'll still have my phone.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure.
And TikTok, I have to stay on TikTok. TikTok will get me.
Yeah.
Because it feeds me anything I'm interested in.
Yeah, I avoid social media. I don't really have much for social media. I created a Facebook mostly just for my business. I don't actually look at it ever for all of those reasons. But shoot, I'm still on Reddit doing the same thing, scrolling through like so.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, we all got our vices, right?
Right.
You know. So, really quickly, EMDR.
Yeah.
Eye movement desensitization reprocessing.
There you go.
There we go.
Nice.
Talk to me about it.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I was like, interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. EMDR is an approach that I guess I'll kind of give you some background on it, for sure. Right? It was kind of discovered and created in like the 80s. This woman, psychologist, I think her name is Francine Shapiro.
Okay.
Not super important, I guess, but she worked with like Vietnam veterans who had PTSD, had experienced combat and stuff, and she noticed that when the conversation around their topic of their experiences became particularly intense, their eyes would always kind of go in a certain direction, these combat veterans. And so she started to work with them of like, let's intentionally move your eyes rather than letting them do whatever they're naturally doing, and kind of came to the realization that like doing that intentionally while recalling these experiences allowed them to like process the information in a way that their brain hadn't been able to process previously. And now this has been, worked and tweaked and studied and researched for like, 40 plus years at this point. And so essentially the concept of eye movement desensitization and reprocessing is basically that, like, when we experience trauma, and when I say the word trauma, it can be those big things that we think about, right? Violence or combat or whatever. But it really can be anything that kind of like overwhelms our like ability to cope, right? And so that can be almost any significant experience in your life. When we go through those experiences, which we pretty much all do, the brain doesn't always do a great job of processing that information and then storing it in a functional way. So it's almost like it processes it incorrectly, and then stores it in like a file that's like not totally functional.
Involuntarily,
yeah. This is not something that we're consciously doing. This is the brain. The brain is incredible, man. It's like constantly working in such complex ways we definitely don't understand. But so these files are then stored in a non-functional way, which causes them to like kind of continue to have an emotional impact on you. It causes some emotional distress. Maybe, we think about it more, or we think, in like the more intense experiences of like PTSD, you have like flashbacks or like these moments of, a sound or a smell or something kind of like sets you off, and then you experience that like fight, flight, or freeze type of response, right? That's what it looks like in the more intense cases.
Right.
What EMDR is meant to do essentially is like, let's identify what those files are. We're going to pull them out, and we're going to, while doing these eye movements, we're going to kind of identify like what represents those files to you, a specific memory, a specific thought, that type of thing. And we're going to engage in what's called bilateral stimulation, which is like moving your eyes back and forth. Or it can also be like audio, like hearing sounds, wearing headphones and hearing sounds back and forth. We're going to do that while recalling this specific situation or this specific instance that is continuing to trouble you until your brain like processes it in a more effective way, and it then allows it to store it in a more effective way. It's not changing the memory. It's not making you forget it. It's not turning a bad memory into a good memory. But what it is it's helping you to process that information so that you don't experience the same level of emotional distress around it.
Wow.
It's memory. Typically memories. It's not like you're not ever going to be happy that this happened to you or anything, but can you accept that it happened without experiencing that emotional distress? It sounds crazy, man.
No, it does. Like, I mean, because you're right. Like, your eyes see something, but it may not be able to. Your brain is not processing all of it like super quickly. It's just putting it away really quickly. Like, okay, this happened.
Yeah, and it has to do with like the sides of the brain.
Okay.
Right. So like that bilateral stimulation, what I'm referring to is like we're stimulating. So like the brain has that hemisphere down the middle, right? It's split right and left. So what EMDR is doing is stimulating both sides of the brain, whereas what may be like naturally occurring when you're experiencing that distress or like recalling those experiences is you're only stimulating one side of the brain, which is causing your brain to not process it effectively.
Got you.
So we stimulate both sides of the brain. It's incredible. Like the brain knows what it needs to do. Sometimes it just needs help getting there. So like that's what we're trying to do with EMDR.
Okay. Thank you for the education, because it's my first time hearing about that. And then we have cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes.
CBT.
Yep.
And I know you said that when you were working at WellPoint, or maybe before that, were you working with autistic children as well, or did you have experience?
I had some of that experience at Family Options.
Okay. Now, Is that what they use for autistic? Is it CBT or is
That's
it?
I think you're getting back to the like behavioral analysis that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
CBT is a pretty broad,
Got you. Okay.
applicable approach to therapy. I would say it's my main approach. I use EMDR when it's appropriate, but CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy, that's more like aligned with like kind of my approach, my personality, my modality for therapy. And that's getting back to something that I mentioned earlier, is about like identifying cycles. It's like behaviors, thoughts, and emotions, and how all of those things are connected. And sometimes they can become a negative cycle where they're all, you're feeling a certain way, you're thinking a certain way, you're behaving or engaging in in actions in a certain way, and they're all moving you towards further depression. They're all moving you towards further anxiety or further anger or whatever it might be. And so CBT is essentially about like recognizing that cycle and finding ways to break it.
Got you. Okay, that's what I remember reading up on it, but I just couldn't. I needed your thing. Two more questions I got.
Yeah.
So you went to school for it, and you got the academic pieces, right? And then you have your own experiential things and your internship and things like that. Do you find yourself using a blend of both, or do you lean more on one than another, or is it session by session?
Yeah, man, it's I would say it's mostly session to session, person to person type of thing, right? So like I guess this is my approach as a therapist. Everybody's different. And that's part of kind of figuring out who you are as a therapist, is figuring out like, what do you align with? What works with like your personality? Because ultimately that's what's going to help you to be more effective, right? If I was spending all of my time focusing on something that I didn't feel personally aligned with, I probably wouldn't be very effective in doing that. And so I guess in my approach, and I explain this to anybody that I work with typically, like my approach is like finding the right balance of, one, creating a space for you to talk about whatever it is you need to talk about, right? Like things that you may not talk about elsewhere. We have room for that here. It's the right balance of combining that with, I might have some concepts or strategies, things to think about, things to do that I think will be beneficial, and how do we figure out ways to like apply that to you and your specific situation. And so pretty much each of my sessions and each of the people that I work with as clients is like finding the balance of that.
Got you.
And that looks different for everyone, right?
Got you.
Some people come and they're like, tell me all about these strategies and concepts. I kind of need you to take the lead. All right, that's okay. We can do that, right? Some people kind of the opposites. People are like, I need this as a space to talk through some things. I'll appreciate a strategy here and there, but I need to get some of this off my chest, right? And like that's okay too, right? And there's everything in between. So yeah.
No, it's the reason why I asked you that, because I did take like some psychology classes, right? Of course, and they were interesting. Yeah. So obviously it was like Piaget and the conditional response for Pavlov.
Sure,
you know what I mean? So I don't always think about that, like conditional responses and things like that. And I always thought that was cool, especially what they did with the dogs. You know what I'm saying? Like, dang, like they start salivating after that. So that's why I was wondering about that, and just like the quantitative versus the qualitative, and how you blend those with your with the individuals you work with. Do you have, for the men out there, young men and older men out there, do you have like one or two strategies that you would provide for them?
Yeah, I mean the big ones, I think the main ones that I would recommend is like, so I guess I don't have like a concrete
for sure
type of thing,
some kind of guidance, right?
But some things to think about, right? Yeah, some things to think about. Going back to that concept of like, what can you do intentionally if you find yourself like kind of feeling like you're in a rut, whether that's feeling depressed or feeling anxious, or just things aren't going the way you want them to be going, right? Start to ask yourself, even starting with small things, what can you do intentionally to start to kind of break that cycle, mix it up a little bit. That reflection piece that you asked about, in terms of when you're experiencing a certain emotion, give yourself time. I like the book is great for this, right? I just need a minute. Give yourself some time to reflect on like what could be driving this emotion, right? And understanding that anger and frustration, 9 times out of 10, there's something else underneath it that's driving it, right? And so we need to try to get at that and understand what that is.
Oh, for sure.
And then the last thing I would say is like we kind of touched briefly on like self-care, like coping skills, right?
Yeah.
And those are things that we tend to hear a lot about: deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, mindfulness, grounding techniques. Those things are amazing. Those things are great. I would encourage you to utilize those, but I guess one thing that I would do, one thing that's helpful to understand is like why those things are helpful.
Got you.
Which is like when we become emotionally distressed in any way, whether that's anger built up or anxiety built up, when that emotion starts to climb, right, and we're starting to feel distressed, what happens is we literally lose access to like the higher functioning parts of our brain that allow us to make like rational and logical decisions, that allow us to see things clearly, that allow us to take perspective, right, or have perspective. When that emotional distress is built up, we literally like physically lose access to that part of our brain. And that's why I'm sure almost everyone out there has had some experience of like, I was really upset and I did this thing that now I regret, or I did this thing that I would normally never do, right? Yes, right. And I did this thing that I don't know why I did it, right?
Right.
That's because we've lost access to that part of the brain. And so what those skills are, again, the deep breathing, the mindfulness, all of that, what those skills are meant for is to help us not get to that point of no return, right? To help us to regain access to that logical part of the brain that helps us to make like sound decisions. And so I think having that understanding of like why those things are important, to me at least, encourage me to use those with more intentionality. Yeah.
Because the decisions can make or break you a lot of times too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like you said, we end up apologizing for those things.
Right.
Now we are in September, and I know this is suicide prevention month and things like that. And I was trying to look up some statistics in regards to men, but I understand that, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that I know that is it higher in men? And I know they use tend to use more lethal.
More lethal or like violent means.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. I mean, I don't have the statistics off the top of my head.
For sure.
But generally speaking, being male alone is considered a risk factor for suicide. And again, like, guys aren't great at reaching out for help, right? And they're not great at showing how they're feeling, right? So I would encourage people to utilize their support systems. I would encourage people to check in on that person who you're maybe concerned with, or you feel like, all right, he doesn't quite seem like himself, or it seems like something's going on, but I don't want to bother him, or I don't want to cross any boundaries or anything like that. I would encourage you to reach out to those people.
Oh, for sure.
I don't want to like get off topic, but I have someone in my life who is very, very important to me, who has gone through some hardships and is kind of currently going through some hardships. It is like pulling teeth to get him to have a conversation with me. But every single time that we do, he's like, this is helpful. I feel better. And I'm like, man, please remember that. And please like, let me know what's going on with you. Cause like, not on a therapist level, just on a personal level I want to be here to help you out. And I am here to help you out, but I just don't always know when to do that, man. And so,
the power of a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
The power of a conversation.
So reach out to your people. If you know somebody's off or something's not right, and you got to push a little bit to get them to have that conversation, like I have to do with this individual, like do it.
Right.
Do it. Yeah.
Right. And we got to pay attention to everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you can always, I would like to think that typically we can tell, like, if somebody's doing a little bit, something like we're creatures of habit, right?
So when you know someone well, right, you know something's not quite right.
Right.
Yeah, right.
You can always tell. So, our final question. You're on the What's Your Motive podcast. Yeah. What's your motive as a therapist?
Yeah, I mean, as a therapist, my motive is to be as effective of a therapist as I can be. To be present with my clients every single day, right? And to be able to be in that moment It's figuring out like what is the how can I say this? I guess continuing to learn, right? Okay. Continuing to learn new strategies, continuing to learn and understand different modalities and approaches to therapy, and how that kind of fits in with my approach as a way of being a further support for the clients that I work with. But the short answer ultimately is my motive as a therapist is to be as effective as I can possibly be. And that was a primary motive for me deciding to like go off on my own. Is like I can kind of figure out like lifestyle stuff to be as effective as I can be. Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. And I know as you've talked, throughout this entire conversation, a lot of your motives have come out. Like I can tell that you mean what you say, especially in terms of like you want to be effective.
Yeah,
and then I just love the fact that the relational piece, where you cater it and you customize it for the individual that's sitting in front of you. Like, oh, you come in, this is what you want. You know what I mean? Like, as opposed to, someone maybe a little bit more reserved and you kind of like ease them into it. And I think that plays a lot in terms of, just us being comfortable with different individuals in general, right? And then we can actually see and we're able to, be a practitioner in terms of what you can do for that individual and help them be, better on their well-being of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. That the relational piece is huge, right? I mean, if I were seeing a therapist, I'd want to feel comfortable with them, right? Absolutely. So, yeah, for sure. And I guess I didn't get into this before, but like you brought up the idea of like therapists are also humans, right? I'm just a normal guy, man. Like I'm not like I think people and maybe I'm like dating myself or aging myself a little bit here, but like you watch like Frasier, or like The Sopranos, or like the therapists in those shows are these like high society types who like spend their time
when they're like in a high rise or something.
They spend their time like listening to classical music and drinking fine wine and that type of thing. Most therapists aren't like that, for the record, and like I'm definitely not. I'm a normal guy, man. I like sports. I hang out with my friends. I play video games. I, try a new beer or a new brewery or whatever. Like, So
right. So he is a human being. He is just like you. Yeah, you know what I mean? Right. Yeah. So, no, man. I really appreciate you coming through. I appreciate this conversation. I mean, this is a second conversation, but I promise you, like, I know we could talk for hours.
Yeah, for sure.
And I truly appreciate it because, like, I'm always just trying to, like you said, you continue to learn, right? You want to continue to learn as a counselor and a therapist and things like that. And I always want to continue to learn to make sure that, if I come in contact with somebody or I see somebody, I have a resource, what I'm saying, for them. And that's the entire thing. That's my motive, to be able to provide these resources for people, but also shed light on humble individuals like yourself. My man doesn't really like a lot of limelight, and I appreciate that because we're one and the same in regards to that. But I appreciate your work. I appreciate you even sitting down and taking the time to, do this with me more than once. You know what I'm saying? And I appreciate you for even taking a look at the book and things like that. And I appreciate your work. I really, truly, I think it's admirable. And I know, like you said, you're just a regular person, and I get it, but I just wanted to say that to you, and I thank you for coming through, man.
No, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you reached out to me and had me on here. The book is excellent, by the way.
Thank you.
I love the book for the concrete approaches, right? And I think guys do well with that, right? Like sometimes it's like, just tell me what to do that you think is going to help, right? I think the book does a good job of like, here are some concrete approaches that you can use, and there's lots of good stuff in there for sure. So I appreciate you sharing that with me as well, and I'm happy to work together and collaborate in the future, whatever feels right.
That's the aim. That's the mission. So
yeah, for sure.
But thank you. Appreciate you coming through. Until next time, what's your motive?